motion and a second. Any discussion? Moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course nays have the same opportunity.
Bob Hope, Ward 1, aye.
Connie Smith, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. Do we have a certification of our closed session?
Whereas the Franklin City School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.23712.d of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by this school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Franklin City, Virginia Board hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Again, moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Bob Hope, Ward 1, aye.
Connie Smith, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. Next up, we have the personnel agenda. We have a request to pull item number 45 and item number 56 and vote on those separately. So do I have a motion in regards to the personnel agenda with the exception of item 45 and 56?
I move to approve the personnel agenda with the exception of 45 and 56 as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Bob Hope, Ward 1, aye.
Connie Smith, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. Next up would be personnel items number 45 and 56. Do we have a motion in regards to those two items? Do we have a motion in regards to personnel line items 45 and 56? One last time, do we have a motion in regards to items number 45 and 56 of the personnel agenda?
I have a question.
Okay,
Can a motion be made by someone who can't vote or won't vote?
you can make a motion, you do not have to vote.
Okay. I move to approve numbers 45 and 56 on the personnel agenda.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Bob Hope, Ward 1, abstain.
Connie Smith, Ward 2, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, abstain.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, abstain.
Carrie Johnson, at large, abstain.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. Now, the way way that works by parliamentary procedure is based on the number of actual votes, not abstentions. That's what determines how many, whether or not it passes. So we only had 2 votes, and those were in favor, so that motion actually will carry. It's not yeah. I actually just sat through parliamentary procedure on that, and it's based on not the majority of people present, it's on the majority of the votes. So that motion does carry.
Well, Madam Chair, what was the reason those 2 items were pulled?
They were pulled because that is a family member of a board member, so she cannot vote on that
Okay,
because it's a conflict. That's the only reason they were pulled.
okay.
All right. I think we have one other item on the, from closed session. Do we have any other motions from closed?
Madam Chair, I move that we amend the superintendent's contract as presented with the change of the through date to June 30, 2024.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Again, moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Bob Hope, Ward 1, aye.
Connie Smith, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson at large, aye.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. All right, next up is approval of our agenda. Do we have a motion in regards to our agenda?
I motion to approve the agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Moving by ward again, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Bob Hope, Ward 1, aye.
Connie Smith, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. All right, that brings us into item number 3, which is our consent agenda. We have a few items underneath that, just a couple, a very short one this week. The first is a budget adjustment. These are in regards to the reclassification of some of the balances of some of the grants. That's a lot going on in there. Did anybody have any questions about that? Okay. Hearing none, the other item that we have is the Oversee Healthcare Foundation grant. We got an email about that earlier, last week. We were awarded 3 grants, the Streamin' 3 for SP Morton, the COVID-19 Response Fund, which is division-wide support in response to COVID, and then as well for the 3 schools, the Healthy Spaces Project, which was $50,000. Any questions in regards to either one of those items under the consent agenda? Hearing none, do we have a motion in regards to the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda
We
as
have,
presented.
we have a motion. Thank you, Dr. Shelton. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and we have a second, a couple seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Bob Hope, Ward 1, aye.
Connie Smith, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. Next up is Human Resources and Federal Programs. Dr. Sterling, I will turn that over to you.
Okay, thank you. For Human Resource and Federal Programs, we'll have Dr. Holler. Thank you. She'll have a special presentation.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Make sure my folder doesn't fall. First, I'd like to share information about school's licensure status. I think I click it myself. Okay. Presented before you is a chart that has the school's information in the first column, the licensed staff number and percentages, provisional license number and percentages, and then long-term substitutes, and then totals. And I would like to just further share information about the long-term substitutes, teacher statuses. At SP Morton Elementary, out of the 8, we currently have 1 teacher or staff member that's completing her bachelor's program, and her packet will be sent to the Department of Education. We have 3 packets that have already been sent, and we have 4 packets that are currently being prepared to be sent as early as next week. And when we say prepared packages, that means that their documentation, their assessment scores, their transcripts from universities are all sent to the Department of Education for an evaluation. And based on that evaluation, either a provisional license or full license is offered, and usually that's what occurs. And they will also let them know if additional assessments are needed. But they're currently in the process. We wanted you to know that 8 didn't just mean they're just 8 substitutes in the classroom. They're actually seeking licensure from the Department of Education. And for J.P. King Middle School, out of the 8 long-term substitute teachers, we have 1 teacher who received her provisional license, which is great. 4 packets were sent, and 3 evaluations were received, and the teachers are now working towards their items outlined in their evaluation. And at Franklin High School, we only have 1, and that person, information was just sent last week, and we expect her to receive a full license in her area. So we want to definitely make sure that you are aware that it wasn't just, again, a long-term substitute in the class. They're working towards their licensure. Are there any questions about that information? Okay. Now I'm going to move to policy updates. We received some policy updates from the Virginia School Board Association. There are 4 policies. The first policy code is GBA JFHA that addresses prohibition against harassment and retaliation, and it's pretty much the same as JFHA GBA. It's just that they're just located in different sections of the policy, and they primarily addresses processes, defines what a compliant officer is or who a compliant officer is, what does it mean to say that you consent, and then sexual harassment. And then we have policy JM that addresses restraint and seclusion of students. And then KNAJ addresses relations with law enforcement authorities and how memorandum of understanding should be prepared to address how they will assist if restraint is needed and they're called in for support. And those are the 4 policies received from the VSBA. And that concludes my presentation, unless there are any questions.
This may be a question for Dr. Sterling. In the event where there was all the controversy about SROs, do we maintain an SRO in our division, or?
No, ma'am, we don't.
Okay.
Don't have it, sir. We did receive a grant that the city did write for an SRO this year, but because of COVID, we never received one.
Okay.
And Dr. Holloran, you're presenting these for first reading?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please.
So we will have them back before us at the next meeting for a vote on those. That gives us time to review those and take a look at them.
I do have a question, going back to the first, or second slide, the licensure.
Yes.
The provisional, is the intent, is that a temporary provisional licensure?
Yes. When their documentation was submitted to the Department of Education, they had enough information to pretty much have a license with just a few things that were needed, but that's considered an actual license.
And
And
they
they
give
allow
them
them time to meet the
3
requirements.
years.
For 3 years, yes. Thank you, Dr. Sterling. They're in that status for 3 years. But of course, here in Franklin City Public Schools, we expedite that process and provide assistance and support to ensure that they receive their full license as soon as possible.
Any other questions for Dr. Holloran? Thank you very much, Dr. Holleran.
Thank you.
Next up is Finance and Operations, Dr. Sterling.
Oh, no, we're going to go back to our special recognitions, Dr. Holland.
Oh, special recognitions, absolutely.
Yes, can you please do our special recognitions for introduce our new hires? And new hires, when you hear your name, do you have that on your phone? Don't worry, I got it. Do you have
In
it?
position, I'm sorry.
Come on over here.
Okay. Thank you.
It's okay, we all improvise. You can do our new hires. And new hires, when you hear your name, we hear your name from Dr. Howard. Please stand so we'll know who you are.
Yes, new hires, we'd like to say again, welcome to Franklin City Public Schools. From the central office, we have Linda Smith, Angela Joyner, Susan Wanzer.
And can you say Susan Bosner is the assistant to Dr. Carter? And she's doing an amazing job, and she also serves as our receptionist. So she's the first person you see when you come into the office, and she has been absolutely a pleasure to work with.
Moving to Administration and Instructional Leadership, we have Mr. Johnson Williams, who is the assistant principal at SP North Elementary School.
All right, Mr. Johnson Williams comes to us from Virginia Beach. Is that correct? So we just swapped. Good job. He has come in full force working with our science department, our SPED, and he is definitely a sponge. And we are excited to work with him. Ms. Thornton, I really feel, has a lot of balance at SP Morton, and we're looking for amazing things from Mr. Johnson. He also was Superman during the trunk or treat. He showed us his powers already. So welcome. Miss South. She is our instructional specialist at SP Morton. She comes from Southampton, and right. Oh, I do apologize. And she, right. That's all I can remember is like, we got another one. But anyway, she has very deep pockets in early childhood and literacy, and she's so detail oriented, and we are just so pleased to have her on our team. I've had a one-on-one conversations where I've learned something, she's learned something, and it's just exciting to have people come into our division with that spark that's really focused on the needs of children. So I want to thank you, and thank you for coming this evening, and thank you for joining our team. Cody is the new counselor. She's not with us this evening, but she's the new counselor at J.P. King. And let Mr. Parker tell us she's tried and true, is she? She's here every day. She shows up for our kids. She's a fast learner, and we're happy to have her as well. And that concludes did I miss anybody? Okay, that concludes our new hires.
Awesome. If we could pause there and backtrack, we had one more item from closed session that we did not address, and that was the leave request for the superintendent. Did anyone have a motion in regards to that? We just jumped right over that one.
I move to approve the leave request for the superintendent as amended.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Bob Hope, Ward 1, aye.
Tanya Smith, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. I didn't want you to think that we weren't ever going to let you have time off.
I needed a minute. Well, again, I want to thank the board. Do you want to say anything before I release our new hires? They've worked all day.
Absolutely not. Thank you all very much for everything that you're doing, and welcome, welcome, welcome. We're glad to have you.
All right, our our new hires and our new hires only may be dismissed. Have a good evening.
All right, next up would be finance and operations. Dr.
Thank
Sterling.
you so much. Mr. Ryder?
Thank you, Board. Good evening.
Good evening.
And so, is this the vouchers? Not sure. There we go. Okay. So here are the vouchers from September. We should have had a chance to review these. If anybody has any questions. Otherwise, we can go on to the next thing.
As a reminder, the vouchers are presented to us just for review purposes. All of those expenses fall within what the superintendent is authorized to approve and pay out. It's just for us to go back and see how those funds are being expended out within the division.
Okay.
Any
Yeah,
questions?
I do have a question.
Sure.
For education. In the first section, the Richmond Restaurant Service
Yes.
I was just curious, the SP Borden cafeteria food, I think it's, the one that's 21,000. I was just curious why that's so much higher than the other schools.
Oh, yes,
How
Richmond.
that's structured.
Yes, Richmond Restaurant is our main food supplier
Mhm.
for all three schools. So we get,
I was wondering why that, is this the elementary school, right?
right, because they serve most of the meals right now. We make most of the meals there, put them on buses and transport them all throughout the.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's what
we'll probably this year during COVID, we'll keep coding them there until that gets up to budget, then we'll go to the next school and then to the next school.
I understand. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, Mr. Ryder, proceed.
Okay. Okay, so this is the first set of financial statements that I'm reporting on this year. They're for the year-to-date September. So every time that I present financial statements to you, it's accumulating. It's year-to-date. We don't do monthly and year-to-date. This is a November 5th work session, and so I present the financial statements in a year-to-date format. It's a legal requirement, and the remainder is to be, the school division is to spend the actual dollars into deficit rollover funds have been allocated. So this year, it's illegal to pass a deficit budget. You don't pass a surplus budget either. So the budget, your game plan, always has to net to zero. Now, when you do that and you have rollover funds that the city gives you from the prior year, that's basically what they refer to as our savings account. So in order to use those rollover funds, we have to spend into a deficit. So your budget's always going to be zero, but you have to spend into the negative the amount that they awarded us. So they awarded us $252,000 of rollover for this year. Now, as these months go on, I will be presenting the board with projections for June 30. This is my best guess of where I think we're going to end up at June 30. That's where we have to meet that $252,000 negative figure. And so right now for these financial statements, it's too early. There's two reasons. One, it's too early to tell because we only had 2 payrolls for where we had all the teachers on in September. So October will be more accurate, and then November, with what you just approved, will be even more accurate because what you approved early, the $177,000 is a federal grant. It's the third stream of the CARES funding that we're going to have. Well, we've had to front load a lot of those expenses. So in these financial statements, we've already paid a lot of those, so I'm going to reclass them in November out of our operating funds and into the grant. So you're gonna actually see your expenses go down. Okay, so the typical structure that we use every month, that we instituted last year actually, General Fund 10 is what we have to keep our eye on. General Fund 10 is ours and the city's money and the state, but those are the funds that fund there, General Fund 10, has to go to the $252,000 negative. The rest of all of our funds are restricted in use. You can't use Title I for anything that they didn't tell you could use it on. You can't use cafeteria funds to pay teachers. You can't, those are all restricted. Fund 10 is what we have to keep our eye on. And here it is. Fund 10. We are budgeted for around $13 million of revenues this year. Same as last year. Somewhere $13.9 million. And see, we're only $3 million into this year, so it's kind of hard to project the rest of the year. It's like projecting an election. You know, the more information you have, the more accurate your projection. But those are the far two right columns is the budget for 2021, and then where we are September 30th. And you know, those are the percentages of where we're at. For example, your instruction, salary, and benefits, we spent 12% of our annual budget so far through September. I added these two funds onto the same page because Fund 8 is our nutrition and Fund 9 is our textbook fund. And so these two are also, they're restricted. The next one is going to be the grants, which has like 20 different grants in there. But this is one separate revenue stream for Fund 8, which Fund 9 is our textbook, and the Fund 8 is our nutrition, and that also is a separate, distinct revenue stream. You don't want to really commit a lot of these numbers to memory because the budget figure here, 2.7 million, and then the 2.7 million of disbursements. What's going to happen all year long is as each grant gets approved, you know, we ask for certain money and then they approve something. Well, so your revenue and expense is going to go up and down every time we get it approved. Like for example, earlier tonight, you see this $2,007,000. I'm going to add that $177,000. So when you see October or November's figures, 2.7 is going to turn into 2.9, and so will the expenses. They'll go up to 2.9. So that this particular page will bounce around all year long, where the other guys will just stay the same all year. And so this is just it just adds everything up. It's the whole division. What you see in the city's CAFR report is this. So, well, you know, we have a $463,000 surplus that'll bounce around all year long as well. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Ryder?
So, I'm sorry, Jerry McCreary.
Sure thing.
When there is a surplus, so it reverts back to, does it depend which fund it is, whether it reverts back to the city or not?
Yes, sir. Only Fund 10.
Fund 10.
So, like, for example, if we had a $100,000 surplus in the textbook fund, it just stays in the textbook fund. It's literally a checking account, especially in the nutrition cafeteria. If that has a surplus, it just stays there.
Okay.
Yep. Board Chair Phillips and I just referred to that yesterday as the reversion. It reverts back to the city if you have a surplus. That's why we don't have surpluses.
Any other questions for Mr. Ryder? All right, if you would like to move on, I guess, to the next one, 5.3, which is the driver's salary schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Or the FOIA request. We had a FOIA request.
Yes.
I'm sorry,
Sorry.
I don't know where Tammy's got this stuff, but there was a FOIA request. Most of those FOIAs come to me because they're usually benign in nature. It's, who was it? It was the, they send out the same FOIA to every school division in the country. They tag like
Every year.
millions and millions of procurement data, and I never see anything from them. I don't know why they do it, but. So they just ask for they ask for a data dump, and we just dump it right out of our thing. There's nothing to redact or anything, and they just send it all. Epicure? No, it's not. I can't remember what it is. Okay, so, moving along to the driver salary schedule. So, in our ongoing efforts to attract high-quality drivers for our schools, I know that we're not in session, but we will be sooner or later. And when we do need drivers. So, in an attempt to attract more qualified drivers, one of the things, in addition to the thing we did earlier in the year, opening up the opportunity for all employees to become drivers, we had a couple of people interested. But there's another thing that was kind of more of a basic problem, was the rate of pay of our drivers. So we wanted to compare. So what we do in school divisions, we compare ourselves to somebody. So it was a little more difficult to get this information. It wasn't like I could just go to a website and grab down their salary schedules, because a lot of people with drivers, they intentionally don't put information up because they don't want people, paying the same rates or poaching their workers. So what I did was I put together this salary schedule. So this is actually, the one on the left is Suffolk Public Schools. They actually do have almost looks like a teacher's salary schedule, doesn't it? So they have an hourly rate, and then they calculate it out. The thing about them, though, is they guarantee 8 hours a day. See, they have their drivers driving eight hours a day. Here in Suffolk, or here in Franklin City, it's hard pressed. I mean, it's hard for them to get 3.5 hours a day. So step one was, I thought that maybe we could at least increase our hourly rate to their rates, depending on their years of service. So, the longer you drive, the higher the rate. So that's one step. This slide is very busy. I probably shouldn't have even included it. It's just too many calculations to follow. But what I did was I calculated, what is it? There's 3 calculations I did here. One, what is it I thought we were going to spend this year without COVID? That's how the budget was created. 2, what do I think we're going to spend with COVID? And 3, what will we spend with COVID at Suffolk's rates? Can we afford that? Oh, and the fourth one I did also was, let's say that next year there is no COVID and every day is normal. Can we sustain going to these rates? And what we did is I calculated that yes, we can. So if we can sustain the drivers at the Suffolk rates next year with no COVID, we certainly can do it this year with COVID. And when I say with COVID, that means some of these drivers, like the sixth one down. Last year she made $33,000, right? This year she's only on track to make about 17, because that driver was doing all kinds of field trips and athletic events and stuff like that. So, they're suffering quite a bit on this. And so, but even just going to the rates, it's something that, I know it sounds like a cheap ploy that we're paying more per hour here, but we don't have as many hours to give. And so, so that was one thing, to try and get them to the Suffolk hourly rate. Number 2, insofar as a retention bonus is concerned, one of the problems even in the teachers is we bring them in, train them, and all this professional development, and then they leave us. And so we came up with a catchy way to remember this, that if you have we would have a 1 and 1, a 2 and 2, and a 3 and 3 retention bonus. So if you're still here on June 30th of next year, which is 2021, you're paid a $1,000 bonus. 2022, we had a $2,000. 3. So that's that's $6,000 over 3 years. We're hoping that it'll fly. We're hoping it'll be effective. So this is just a summary of the earlier slide with all those numbers. The original projection of normal hours and everything is about $250,000 for all drivers. The new projection at the Suffolk salary scale would be about $273,000. So it's only about a $23,000 difference. So $273,000 would be next year's estimate. Okay. This year's budget is $304,000. So this year, so if you look at the last 3 numbers there, this year's budget's $304,000. If we paid them at Suffolk's rates, we'd have about $227,000 of payroll, and we'd have about $10,000 in retention bonuses at the end of this year. And so we would have actually a $66,000 positive variance.
I have a question. I know at one point you had another creative approach where it was kind of like a pool idea.
Yes.
Would this negate that, or would that be able to work in with that?
No, actually, it's just a different scale. It's just a different scale. I would love to have the pool. I still have the love. We got 2 people that were interested in that.
I thought that was a really great idea.
Like I said, I didn't get Cleo, Scott, our media person involved. I mean, Dr. Sterling knows when I put stuff out, it's a lot of text. And
Pretty it up a
She has to
little.
come in and jazz it up and spice it up. So she needs to help me get the word out better.
And this isn't something that's isolated to Franklin. And we're seeing it across the board, and it's everywhere. Anyone that's in education knows everyone is having issues with bus driver retention.
Right. It is, as I was on a call a few weeks ago, special ed used to be the big boogeyman. Oh my gosh, the costs and all these feel-good laws, but nobody's paying for them. The second was transportation. It was closing in on SPED. That's the biggest challenge for school divisions. So my recommendation is that I recommend that we adopt a new salary schedule based on Suffolk, and each one of those things I added 5 cents, so we're higher than Suffolk. Institute the bonus retention program, and then we'll start the communications program.
Is the, looks like the minimum hours yearly of 630, that's correct?
Yes.
Okay. So are all the drivers currently employed? I mean, with the COVID, are they all driving at some point?
This is a feast, and this is probably one of my most difficult problems. We have drivers that right now are not driving, and then we bring them in to deliver meals, and then we switch them off.
Mm-hmm.
And the one lady who's helping stuff envelopes. So we're trying to keep them busy doing something, but if we open on February 1st, I have to have all these drivers up and ready to go. So you have to kind of have to bring them in. We had a finance committee meeting a few nights ago, and I really loved one of the ideas that came out was, could you create a full-time position where you drive, then you're a custodian, and then you drive, because custodian work can be done kind of any time, And catchy name on that was a bus driving custodian. It was a bus cuss. So if you like the idea, it was mine. If you hated it, it was Robert's. So that was, I like that idea. So another creative idea, the pool, bus custodian.
I mean, but at some point, are they more or less on call?
Yes.
How does that work? Like, say, I know not now with the COVID, but when there's field trips, who gets selected?
Yes, that was up to the point that the last transportation supervisor departed. She just had the people that basically volunteered. I mean, there's some drivers that just, hey,
kind of
2 o'clock, I'm done, or 3 o'clock. Others were, I'll drive until midnight if you need me. And so, we're trying to get it incentivized where we have more people volunteering than not. That's the most optimal outcome.
Right.
And it does help with us having such a small staff as far as bus drivers, because it's not like we have 30 or 50 bus drivers, because we don't have that much of a need. So when you isolate down to 8 or 10, if you've got 5 or 6 that are like, all I can work is the hours that I'm scheduled to drive a bus just for the regular bus route, it's not as many jumping at the opportunity to pull the extra shifts, so you don't have that fight for extra hours.
Yeah, one of the other problems on, I think, 2 of the drivers we have, and you know how small our pool is, right? 2 of them was like, hey, I have a second job. I have to have the second job. So now I have to kind of sit with them, like, well, what do you do? How much do you make? How many hours do you work? You know what I mean? I almost have to do a life review with them to see how much we can use them on our. our job, you know, so.
Okay, Jeff, are we requesting the approval for the second semester?
Yes, this would go into effect during the second semester.
Effective.
So does anyone have any further questions in regards to the proposed driver salary schedule?
Just out of curiosity, did you figure out what it might be for us to put it into effect second quarter? As opposed to second semester? Like that extra 9 weeks?
Oh, the second fiscal, October, November, and December.
Yeah, the school quarter.
Oh, the school quarter,
Yeah,
yeah.
for,
Oh, okay.
until that, like if we did it now.
No, I hadn't, actually. I don't think it would be a lot because they're just coming in, delivering meals, and going home. So, I don't think it would be a lot.
Good question.
Because if
Good
it's
question, yeah.
27,000, I think was the difference over the remainder of the year, is that correct? I'm trying to pull it up, look. 23.
23.
23, so if you take, and that, if that is for the second semester, half of
That's
that
for
would be.
18 weeks.
Right, yeah.
So half of that would be almost
11,
12,
something like that.
11 and a half, yeah.
Yeah, and, you know, and so we're gonna have a $66,000, surplus at the end of the year anyway on this spend, so it's absolutely affordable. It would be. Great question.
I would like to move to adopt the new salary schedule as presented, effective immediately.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course, nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Bob Hope, Ward 1, aye.
Connie Smith, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jerry McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries.
Wow, thank you so
Thank you
much.
so
Speaks
much.
volumes, speaks volumes. I'm sure they will be excited to hear that.
Because you didn't have anything else to do right now, Mr. Ryder. Go ahead and get that in
Great, and then
place.
you throwing them a loop questions.
I know how much you like numbers, so, it's early Christmas.
Great
for you.
job, thank you.
One thing that Mr. Ryder did bring up that I wanted to just clarify with the board, he did mention a FOIA request. For board members that have been here for a little bit, you may remember we had some discussion a while back as a board about FOIA requests, and after lengthy discussion, the board had, some board members had requested that all FOIA requests be brought to the board. Is that something that we want to continue? Because we could get FOIA requests at any time for any little bit of information. Or do we feel that's best left handled by the division? Is that getting too into the weeds?
My question is, what does it
What
have
does
to
it
do
have to
with
do with governance?
That's a very good question.
Nothing.
That's a very good question. And that is why I bring that up. So how does the board feel about that? Do we want to continue having those brought before the board, or do we feel that's best left to the administration of the division?
I don't think the board needs to see it unless it becomes a problem later. But the first time it happens, I wouldn't think so. Just my feeling.
Have there been problems with FOIA requests?
Not that I have been aware of since I've been on the board. I haven't.
I mean, are they generally fulfilled right away?
Yes, all FOIA requirements are fulfilled within the statute. So all of the time requirements and everything, we have diligently filled those as requested.
So if the district, takes care of it, but the board would be aware of it, it's something like
Right, and in the past, if it was something that may have sent up a flag as to why someone was asking for something, the superintendent has let us know. Most of the time, a FOIA request is, like Mr. Ryder was saying, it's where there's this national entity that compares division to division, and they're looking for certain data to compare across the board. That kind of thing, do we want that brought before the board for us to know every single one of those? That the USA Today, I don't know if you remember that, the USA Today article a couple of years ago. Things like that. So do we feel that's something that needs to be brought to us, or just leave it to the superintendent's discretion?
The board at least knowing about having, there's been, I don't know how frequently all your requests are made, but.
We don't get that many in a year.
As a member of the governance team, we don't get many at all, and it is something that we've done at the administration level. The board, again, it's nothing about governance, so it wouldn't be brought to the board for the first time. Now, for informational purposes, yes, and a board communication, yes. It is something that really was an emergency, yes, but anything else, it's always handled in administration level, because it's not policy. You have a policy for me to go by.
So it could be included like in board communication.
Exactly.
Not,
Yeah.
Yeah, but not just something I would run to the board for.
Right.
Mm-mm.
Just to throw it on the radar.
Yeah.
So would that be, okay with the board if it's put to, it just brought to our attention within a board communication, if something comes up?
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
That's fine.
Okay. That works for me. All right, moving right on along. Next up is curriculum and instruction, Dr. Sterling.
Thank you, Ms. Burkhalter. We'll hear from our Chief Academic Officer and principals this evening. We haven't heard from them all year, and it's good to have them with us. Ms. Burkhalter.
Good evening, school board members. Tonight we wanted to provide you an update with the BPI. Our enrollment currently is 47 completed applications. We have 2 pending applications, and remember we have a total of 54 slots. Now, due to COVID presenting the challenges with enrollment, a SUP memo came out, and we wanted to make you aware of that too, because it could potentially impact funding. So I took the meat of the SUP memo out and put it into the PowerPoint for you. So if we go to the next slide, this is where I had a meeting with Mr. Ryder and Mrs. Thornton, the principal at SP Morton. So there's a timeline for us to get the 100% funding or the reduced funding for 75%. We're still trying to hit that 54 enrollment, and we have until after we come back from winter break to hit that. So we wanted to make you aware of those timelines, and that we could potentially have reduced funding if we don't hit the 54 slots. But we're actively trying to fill those. Like I said, we got 2 pending applications this week, so Mrs. South continues to make strides on that. Are there any questions?
So that's 5 slots remaining, not discounting of course, the 2 that are pending. That leaves us with 5 that we need to fill.
As long as we don't lose them, any of the 47.
Oh, we're gonna hang on to all of them.
Absolutely, we're doing all we can. They check in with them every week. If they don't show up for class, the teacher calls every day.
That's right.
If there are no further questions with UPI, next we will present our continuous school improvement plans to you by school. We'll start with Mrs. Thornton for SP Morton, then Mr. Parker for JP King, and Mr. Phelps for Franklin High School. We're going to present our academic goals to you. These have been vetted. I think Mr. Parker's going to have the most pride coming up because he received so much feedback. I guess he got tired of we've been talking to us when he came back the last time. Because we wanted to ensure when you all looked at them, you didn't say, oh, these look similar to last year. So we made them, as we would tell the teachers, we made it more rigorous so that whether we were virtual or whether we were in brick and mortar, this plan will carry. And we were looking to see how we could potentially make sure we didn't miss any pitfalls or we're closing the gaps as we try to close the achievement gaps. So Ms. Thornton, you can come first. And the principals are going to present their goals with the action steps only, so you're not here all night, because you've had
Good evening, board members, Dr. Sterling. It is my pleasure to present Samuel P. Morton's Continuous School Improvement Plan for the 2020-21 school year. The way that we developed our CSIP for the year, we looked at, well, of course, our areas that we want to address, our areas of deficit are in the area of reading and in the area of science. So in the area of reading, we looked at our K2 population, which are learning to read. And for that SMART goal, by June 14th, 2021, 167 out of 209 kindergarten, first, and second grade students will meet the Spring PALS benchmark to achieve an 80% pass rate. We have 5 essential actions that we have developed to meet that goal with several action steps to accomplish that goal. For our 3rd through 5th grade population, they are reading to learn. Our K2, learning to read, but our 3-5, they're reading to learn. So our SMART goal for that is by June 14th, 2021, 187 out of 250 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students will score 400 or better on the reading SOL to achieve a 75% pass rate. Again, we have 5 essential actions that match that goal with several different action steps. And we have quite a few action steps, as you can see, that will meet those goals, that will meet the goals that are listed. And then in our area of science, I know Ms. Moore's flipping through, but I'm a paper girl, so I have to refer to mine. For our science, our SMART goal is by June 14th, 2021. 64 out of 92 students in 5th grade will score 400 or better on the science SOL to achieve a 70% pass rate. There is one essential action associated with that, and with that essential action, we're looking to bring in professional development through an explicit process focused on student learning outcomes. We're always looking to close our achievement gaps for our African American males, in addition to our exceptional ed, our SPED population. Are there any questions, board members? Dr. Sterling.
When you cite those numbers, like 187 out of 250, is that a certain percentage of the students? Or
Yeah.
how did you come up with those numbers?
Okay, if I go back to the reading K2, learning to read, that 167 out of the 209, those two numbers will give you that 80%.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And remember, we always talk about reaching every child. So though you don't see the 100 out of 100, those are our students either we're giving intense support to or students that are getting accelerated support.
Okay, thank you.
How do these goals compare to the current pass rate?
The current pass rate in the area of reading, we were at about a 67 from the last year that we took it. And in science, we were a little bit lower from our last time of taking it. Science, we were at about a 45% pass rate. So it is a slight difference, especially with the area of science.
So this would be quite an increase.
Yes, yes. And, prior to COVID, we were really looking forward to with all the action steps that we had put in place for the students to take the test, and we were looking for them to pass, but we had that same goal for this year as well. Are there any additional questions? Okay. Thank you, board members. Thank you, Dr. Sterling.
Thank you, Ms. Thornton. I think next up is Mr. Parker from JPK.
Good evening, board members, Madam Chair Phillips, the board members, Dr. Sterling, team. Just want to talk to you tonight about our CSIP goals, our school improvement plan. We have writing. Writing is our first plan, and I'm going to give the action goal. Let me put my eyes on. By June the 14th, 2021, 57 out of 77 8th 8th grade students in the writing 8 SOL test will score 400 or better to achieve 75%. To give you a little bit of data from last year we were 82% in English with SOLs. English, that's a combination of your writing and your reading. In reading, we were 86% across the board, and in writing, we were 65%. Of course, you know 75% is passing. So 65%, that was growth from the previous year where we were 59%, but we want to achieve 75 or better. So we have 6 action steps that we have put in place for the writing goal. And again, I want to thank Ms. Lawrence, the team at JPK, Ms. Lawrence, Ms. LaCrone, Ms. Cox, and myself, and also thank the feedback from Ms. Berhalter and Dr. Sterling for our feedback on this. I didn't think Ms. Berhalter would throw me out there like that tonight. But yes, we want to continue. We want to continue to move forward. We want to continue to move forward. We were all green last year. We want to continue that process, and we want to continue to grow. Our ultimate goal is 100%. So we're going to continue to work towards that ultimate goal. Again, we have 6 action steps. I'm not going to read those action steps to you. If you want some clarification on any of them, I can provide that for you. The next goal is science. By June the 14th, 2021, 7th and 8th grade students who participate virtually will obtain 72% or better in conducting scientific investigations using appropriate virtual labs and hands-on activities through technology to gather, organize, analyze, and interpret data in order for teachers to target our Tier 2 and our Tier 3 students. If we have any questions about what Tier 2 and Tier 3, who they are, we can provide that for you as well, along with the exceptional ed students to ensure that instruction goals are met. We have 8 action plans for that goal in science. 2 years ago, we were 70% in science. The pass rate is 70%. Last SOL, we were 69%, so we are still in the green with 70% because of the thing that happened. But of course, we want to make sure we move that to 75 or 80%. So we have 8 action plans for that area as well. And of course, our last one is exceptional ed. Exceptional ed, we were 73%, which was green 2 years ago. A year ago, we were 72%. We dropped 1 percentage to the yellow. So we obviously want to get that back up into the high 70s or 80s and as high as we possibly can. We did fill out an application. I think she's gone now, Dr. Holloway, for our distinguished school.
Yes, they did.
And we're headed towards Blue Ribbon. And we're not just saying it, we mean it. So we're going to do everything we can as a team, along with Central Office staff, Dr. Sterling. And we're going to do everything we can to make that possible. And thank you for everything as well. Any questions for me?
I'm not sure if this is for you or for Dr. I keep wanting to call her Dr. Burkhalter. Anyway, Marzano, how does that compare to Bloom's?
Marzano is strategy. So it's what the teachers can use as a strategy to implement Bloom's. So if we want a child to be on the lower level of Bloom's for comprehension, then the teacher could pull one of the Marzano strategies, such as using a graphic organizer. So the Marzano high yield are strategies for the teachers to utilize Bloom's and get up to the top where the rigor is.
Okay.
So it helps them scaffold the instruction for the students as well, to make everybody where they are.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I'm sure y'all have this, as you can see in the plan, with all 3, we are definitely using Marzano strategies.
High
one of the-
yielding
Yes,
strategies, right?
strategies, yes.
Thank you.
Great job.
Excellent job.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Excellent
Mr.
job.
Barker.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Mr. Phelps.
Always.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to be back. I'm a little rusty. I don't even know how to do this microphone. It's been since March, I guess, since I've done it. But nice to be back in here. Franklin High School has 2 goals, 2 SMART goals that we're focusing on this year, with a third one that I'll kind of throw in at the end. But our 2 SMART goals for our continuous school improvement plan both have to do with math. That's been our area of challenge at Franklin High School for a few years, although I will say at the high school, when we left on March 13th, because we did have half of our data back from last school year, even though we're not counting it because all schools received a waiver, we were at 76% for math, which was up from 63% the prior year. That did not include our second semester students, and it did not include our retakers. But I do feel confident that we would have ended up in the 80s had we finished out the year, because the retakes only bring you up. They don't count against you twice. So anyway, I just kind of want to throw that out there for our math team, because they worked so hard, and we had that 76%, which explains why our first goal, Franklin High School will achieve level 1 status for overall math by either achieving 80%, and if you remember last year our goal was 75%, but we didn't want our goal to be less than what we left with in March. We want our goal to be more rigorous, so we went to 80% on the adjusted pass rate, or by reducing our failure rate by 10%, which is known as R10, for the 2020-21 school year. The pass rate for math for 2019-20 was 76%. That was only half of our data, because we never got the other half. An increase of 4 percentage points would be 80%, and that would land us in level 1, which is also known as the green category. Additionally, and this is very important, the overall pass rate for geometry, algebra 1, and algebra 2 will be 80% based on adjusted SOL test results for the 2021 school year. In other words, we don't want our algebra 2 students to have to carry our geometry students. We want everybody at least 80%. And then that way, if we can do that, we'll be well above our goal. The second goal we have is for our subgroups, because the gap groups, we were also at a deficit 2 years ago. We were in the yellow. So that's our second goal. Each subgroup at Franklin High School, Black, economically disadvantaged, Hispanic, and that's a small subgroup for us, and students with disabilities, and white, will achieve level 1 status by either achieving an 80% adjusted pass rate or by reducing the failure rate by 10%. So not only do we have an overall goal for math that includes all 3 of our subjects that we draw the SOLs from, the scores from, we also have a subgroup goal so that we can close those achievement gaps. And then we have 4 action steps to meet those goals. This is not on our CSIP, our Continuous School Improvement Plan, but another internal goal that we have for ourselves at Franklin High School, which wasn't required by DOE, Virginia Department of Education, but in-house we have a CTE goal this year, and that is to have a 75% pass rate on all of our industry certification tests for each one of our career and technical education courses, because that has been even more than math. I'm just always brutally honest. That's been even more of a challenge than math recently, is getting having a higher pass rate on industry certification tests. So we felt like, as a team at Franklin High School and as a team at Central Office, all of us together as a team, that we needed to focus on CTE just as hard and just as monitor it just as much as we do the SOL courses. So we have 2 math goals that are official on the CSIP, but we also have a CTE goal that we are keeping at the forefront as well. Are there any questions for me?
I have one.
Yes, ma'am.
It's about the first goal and the last sentence in it, about the overall pass rate, and I certainly understand not wanting to have one class carry, the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't meet that, will that I don't want you all to not consider yourselves having met the goal, since there's that either or statement in there, which I think is a very valid and attainable goal. So I'm just wondering about that last sentence there.
To make accreditation, we had to get at least 70%
Correct.
overall from Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry. We've had an issue in the past where Algebra 1 was near 100% pass rate, but Geometry might have been in the high 50s, low 60s.
Right.
So, and some of that has to do with who takes the courses too. But we don't want that. We want to make sure that Algebra 1, Geometry are carrying their weight as well. So that's why we included that as part of the goal. But we do have an or in there. Another way we can reach our goals by reducing the failure rate by 10%, which is easier for geometry at 59% to reduce by 10% because they've got that 41% that didn't pass. So they've got more of a way to do it than maybe Algebra 2 does with 98%. They can't reduce the failure rate by very easily because not that many fail.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. I'm just concerned about the way that it's written because I want you all to get credit for it. And it's you either do this or this, but also you have to do this. So that kind of gets rid of that other or statement with reducing anything, because if you don't hit the 80% in every one of the subjects, then to me, the way that this is written, then you don't meet that goal. And so in order to make it like you're explaining it, I would almost think that I want you to get credit for what you do. And this is like that extra thing that says, okay, you can do this or this, but if you don't do this, that wipes it away.
Okay.
So.
I appreciate that feedback. I do feel like we need, and Dr. Sterling can speak to this also,
Yeah.
but I do feel like we need to try to hit it in every category.
I agree.
Instead of just the overall.
I agree.
Right.
Perhaps putting it by reaching an 80% adjusted pass rate with each of these courses meeting 80%, or reducing the R10. Like that should be with that first part
Okay,
of the goal.
I'm with you now. Okay, we did the or for overall, but we didn't do the or for each individual subject. Is that what you're saying?
Right, like if you want that 80% to be in each one, that should be with that first part before the or, because if you don't do that, you still have that fail-safe of the R10.
Okay. Well, I'll let Dr. Sterling and Ms. Burkhalter ponder that. And
Because
if they feel like we need to add that or.
Because, I like the 80% in each, and I'm absolutely tickled that all three of the schools did not back down and say, well, because of COVID, we thought we would do this instead, even though none of y'all did that, and I am very glad to see that. So I'm with you, and I know that it's possible. So,
and this is a very rigorous goal, and it's based on what's happening at the middle school and then what's happening at the elementary school. So I'm glad you said that. I appreciate you acknowledging that we're not backing down, because it is our strength, but again, it's really starting to accelerate. We're starting to see those fruits 2 years later at the high school. So we'll definitely, we can go back because it's just a matter of wording. Thank you for looking into the goal as closely as you did. But 80% in each category even goes back to what we spoke about earlier, that accountability piece, making certain that every child is being taught at the highest level possible. So we'll look into that. Not a problem.
We can definitely look at it. Any other questions or feedback? Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Phelps.
I want to make a note. This is the first time Mr. Phelps did not say, well, you know we're going to make it. You came up and said, we're making it. Thank you.
All right, and thank you, Ms. Burkhalter, as well. Next up is gifted education, Dr. Sterling.
Excellent. This starts rounding off the last bit of the superintendent's report. Ms. Ricks will come up and she'll talk about our advanced academic week. This is our first annual ever. This is our inaugural kickoff. And we're very excited about it.
Yes.
Ms. Ricks?
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, again, just starting, we will have our first advanced annual academic week, which I'm excited about, and we have gotten our team together when we on the move with moving forward with the plan. We have a flyer that will be released after the board meeting, and we will be sharing that flyer with our various communications through our gifted department and also through the website. And it's right there, and I'll read it. So I'm excited, and and we do thank Cleo for her excellent work, because she's amazing. I send her the information, and she just makes it happen. So I'm grateful for her. But here's our flyer. And again, the FCPS Gifted and Talented Department
will hold the first annual Advanced Academic Week. The events will highlight existing and new programs that LCPS offers to accelerate, transform, and innovate the minds and creativity of our students throughout the division. So again, we're excited about that, and as you can see, even in our informational session for our advanced academics, the different programs that we definitely would be highlighting throughout that event. So that is listed there on the flyer as well. So next. You can go to the next one. All right, so this is pretty much an overview of what's going to be going on. And again, that week is December the 7th through the 11th. And our first day will be Monday, which will be an introduction to the advanced programs at SP Morton. Again, we have so many different programs that we definitely want to have an opportunity to inform our parents, give them resources. We want to be able to have breakout sessions where, it will be virtually. So we're going to have breakout sessions of family engagement activities per grade level. And we also going to have our art teacher and also our music teacher doing breakout sessions, because we are currently also planning with our visual arts in the gifted department, and also for our high achieving students. So they're going to be breaking out sessions to just get information and have family engagement activities with parents, and also be able to share resources and get feedback as we build upon our programs here in the division. So that will happen at the elementary school again on Monday from 6 to 7. Also on Tuesday from 6 to 7, we will focus just on J.P. King. And also on Wednesday, we will focus on the programs at the high school. And again, our art teachers and music teachers at each school will be a part of those breakout sessions. So we will give parents the opportunities to select what room they want to go in, and they will have that option from our first breakout session for each day. And our next slide, then we go to Thursday, which on Thursday we will focus on the specific programs, mentorship programs that we have at the high school, which is great because we have so many different programs there. We have a gifted education mentorship program, we have a student success program, access program, and we also have the Camp Community College High School Career Coach. And we also have our FHS Guidance Department, which provides detailed mentorship services. So again, the parents will have an overview information session, and then they will be able to go to those different components with representatives from each one of those teams, and they will be able to have family engagement activities. So they will have the information, and they will be able to go in those with those teams. And our last day, which is Friday, so we moved the time up for 3 to 4 o'clock because we know that our parents want to do their own things on Friday. So that time will be 3 to 4, and we will have breakout sessions from based on our all-site enrichment opportunities. We will have representatives from our governor schools, the College of William and Mary, which we have several students that participate in those programs. Tidewater Regional Governor School representative, and we will have representative from Virginia Tech, also our gifted teacher and myself as well. So we will have a host of opportunities, and again, we get information back from the parents, and that's what we plan on doing with that on that day. Any questions for me? Yes, sir. This will be the first time that we did this, and the first time virtually. We never did it, so it will be the first time period, even virtually. So I'm excited about it because I'm used to setting up enrichment opportunities, but virtually is a different challenge. But I with the team that we have and Dr. Sterling supporting the vision and moving us forward, we definitely can do it, and I'm looking forward to it. And the team has had some great ideals in terms of really pushing it out and jumping on board with it. So I believe it's going to turn out right. Yes. And that's why we want to get it out now, get the flyer out via social media, our different platforms of communication, and just try to push it out as much as possible so we can get a lot of participation, because it's not just for our gifted students, but it's also for our we got a lot of high achieving students that participate in multiple programs. We also have talented students that may not necessarily receive gifted services, but they may have a disability or have other issues, but they are able to participate in some of these programs that we have.
One of the things I want to add to it is that we are sending the flyer out to students that have families that have opted out to do homeschooling, so that don't attend Franklin City. So we'd like to show them what we're doing now to possibly entice those families to come on back.
I have to commend all of you, Dr. Sterling, Ms. Ricks, the entire team, because this is something I think that Franklin has needed for a long time, especially for those, well, for all students, but the parent of the child that is that high achiever, especially with where we're located. You know, what's out there? What can I get my kid into? I had one child that wanted to go to school year round, and I don't mean as in year round school, I mean really wanted to go to school year round because she loved school and learning that much. And trying to find those resources when you don't know where to look is very difficult. So you're actually taking some of that legwork out of that for the parents to say, hey, here are some options for your child. So I really commend you for doing that. I think that's going to make a huge difference for some of these families to know there are things, and here are some of those things that your child can participate in.
Thank you. Great job.
Thank you so much for that. Last but not least, are you guys going to hang in there with me? Okay, I appreciate it. Last but not least, we have VHSL updates. Mr. Phelps?
Mind if I bring Coach Gamble?
Please, please.
Good evening again, everyone. Mr. Larry Gamble, our athletic director, is with me. We attend Virginia High School League webinars, it seems like almost daily. I know this week has been almost daily, but at least once a week. And we have put together for you a Virginia High School League updates and overview of our FHS plan for return to athletics and activities participation. I promise I'll be less than 3 minutes, even though we have lots of information that you can refer back to or ask questions. First of all, we had 5 documents that we pulled from to create this FHS plan. I won't read those to you because I'll take up my 3 minutes, but those are the documents that, especially that top one, the 2020-21 guidelines for return to participation that was put out by the Virginia High School League, a very comprehensive document that's 39 pages and actually breaks down what to do for each sport, all the way down to where to put the chairs on the basketball court for the teams to sit. So I'm gonna let Coach Gamble talk about what he wants to say in a minute. But basically, Virginia is still in phase 3. So we're going by the phase 3 guidelines whenever we get the green light to return to athletic and activity. Don't forget theater, robotics, and Scholastic Bowl. Athletic and activity participation. A lot of schools in our state have already returned to athletic participation. Not games yet, not competitions, but weight training, conditioning, skill work under the phase 3 guidelines, which you see all those guidelines there. It's part of the Franklin High School plan. I won't read all those to you, but the governor did amend, or the Governor Northam, the last bullet on the next page that I underlined, on October 29th, Governor Northam signed the amended Executive Order 67, and Virginia Department of Education has amended their phase guidance for Virginia schools. Basically, that's what cleared the way for all sports and activities to return to play. If the division chooses to participate, starting December the 7th, that's the first official day, next slide, of winter sports. The order of the seasons this year for those schools that participate will be winter sports first, starting December 7th. That's the official tryout start date. However, you can be conditioning and weight training and all that now. And then followed by fall sports, which will be February 4th through May 1st. I know that's not fall, but that's going to be the fall season this year in this crazy world we're in. And then spring sports will be April 12th through June 26th. Yes, that's way after graduation for all divisions, but still students, even seniors who have graduated, can continue with their spring sports season. Coach Gamble, Mr. Phelps, we participate in all of the Virginia High School League webinars, meetings, Tri-Rivers District meetings, Region 1B meetings, and I'd like to say that Franklin High School is a leader in the state as far as putting a lot of this stuff together. Coach Gamble is on webinars every day, and I'm on as many as I can be, but there's more for athletic directors than there are for principals. And we're not just participants and taking in the information. A lot of divisions, especially in our area, are following our lead. So I'm kind of proud of that. If and when we do go back, right now we can have a 50% occupancy if we choose to allow people to attend our games, or 250 people, whichever one is less. And Armory Field, the occupancy load is 3,000. Our Franklin High School gym can actually seat 824. You would have to be crammed tight in there, but that's what the sign says on the fire code above the door. So half of that is more than 250, so 250 would be our limit if we decided to do that. And that includes teams, coaches. So I'm not saying we would have 250 people that would pay to get in. It would be 250 people, period. So this is a year that a lot of divisions, a lot of high schools are tightening their belts as far as their athletic budgets, because it's not going to be a whole lot of gate receipts, even if we decide to participate. Coach Gamble, I know I went over 3 minutes, Ms. Moore. You told me this morning not to do that. Okay, Coach Gamble.
Good afternoon. I really don't have that much to say, but once you give us approval, we would like to start condition the following week through the 9th through Thanksgiving. Start condition. Bring the kids in, and so they can get in some type of shape, because they've been sitting at home for close to 6, 7, 8 months. So once you give us the approval, we'll go from that point.
I will say our local plan has been approved by Dr. Sterling and the Virginia Department of Education and the Virginia High School League. We were one of the first high schools to get our plan in, and it was approved right off the bat. And since then, we've had to adjust it a couple of times because the state has adjusted, how many people can, how many feet you have to be apart, and the number. So we've had to make adjustments. Our coaching staff was involved in putting our plan together back in August. We met in the cafeteria space, the library spaced all across with masks on, and this wasn't something just typed up by me, Coach Gamble, and Mr. Smith. This was a team effort, and I feel like we're totally prepared to do it safely. But that is totally up to Dr. Sterling when we actually say, let's do it.
And I am bringing this before the board for recommendation to start. Again, thank you, Travis and Mr. Gamble, for all that you've done and continue to do. And I feel so confident because every time I go to my superintendent's meeting, they're referencing Travis. I'm like, okay. And we even had a meeting with Dr. Lane, what was that, Monday or something? And I immediately shot him an email and text and was like, I need you by my side. Can you make this webinar? And he's like, I'll do my best and I'll get on it. And that's how much he's involved, not at just the local level, but at the state level. So we have definitely a team that is leading the state with these plans.
I have a question.
Please.
A lot of these, well, some of, if not most, have meets that will be required for overnight, whether it be regional or states, or just to go meet a team where they can practice or, work on their skills. Is that something that you intend to allow them to do?
Are you specifically speaking to wrestling?
No.
You're
Scholastic Bowl had a lot of overnights as
True.
well.
All right. Because when you first started talking, I thought wrestling this year, just so everybody knows, we're not supposed to go over having a tri-meet. There's no quad meets. There's no big all-day tournaments because that's going to be too many people.
Right.
And so for wrestling, that one of the provisions in that document, if you look at it, there's 39 pages. On the wrestling page, three schools competing at once is the limit. But for all of our sports, I mean, we're going to have to make a decision on whether we're going to travel, how far we're going to travel, where we're going to travel, spending the night. Those are all, the VHSL and VDOE have left that to the local divisions, how much you want to travel, how far you want to travel. If you want to participate at all, it's a local decision, basically, as long as you stay within the guidelines.
Has that been something that you all have discussed? And I'm not sure in that 39 pages, when they're talking about tournaments, are they also talking about regional and state tournaments, or are they just going to be held and condensed in some way?
They're still, the calendar is called the Championships +1 model, which means you can play 60% of your schedule. So, for example, a regular football schedule is 10 games, so you can play 6 games, 60% of your schedule. And then you can play one extra game if you don't make the postseason, kind of like a bowl game. You can just play an extra game to have a game, or you can advance to the regional and state tournaments. But it's going to be less teams, and it's going to be less days. Like for example, the wrestling state tournament, which is normally a 2-day event, is now going to be reduced to a 1-day event, so that it won't be so much spending the night and all that, and the number of schools that are there and number of athletes that are there all at once. So everything is condensed and reduced. That the whole point of this is so our kids can have a season, but we know it's not going to look like what it normally looks like.
Right, but I also know that a lot of those regional and state tournaments for all of these aren't usually local. So
exactly.
Even if it's just one day,
even if it's just one day,
it's
we're still going to
require
go the day before and spend the night, because it's going to start the next morning at 7:30 a.m. or 8 a.m.
Right.
But it won't be 2 nights, and it won't be as many athletes all in one enclosed building at one time.
Okay, I just I would like to see that if we're going to go forward with the sports season, that we're doing it all in, as per the requirements or standards have been set for the HSL. So I would like all of our students to be able to meet those, requirements and, hit those regional and state championships if they go that way, go that far.
Our number one goal in all of this, and I know Coach Gamble would back me up, and the coaches, number one goal is safety.
Absolutely. Correct.
But if we're going to do it, we want to do it all in, like you're saying. But number one goal is safety.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think as we do this, we bring to you our plans, the overnight plans, the chaperones, and then you will see how we're putting either 2 people into a room or 1 person in a room. So you'll get all of that up front. And I know it's so weird because we haven't approved a field trip form or overnight form. And normally you've been doing 7 or 8 by now.
Right.
So as we go back and remember, all of that will be with you before you even say, yes, we can go. You'll see the whole layout.
Any other questions? I mean, we could get down to the weeds. We got this thing down to when you pull into the gym parking lot, where you park, how you get out of your car, your mask on, what sidewalk you line up on for the gym, what side you line up on for the weight room. I mean, Coach Gamble could, and the coaches have really fleshed this thing out. Not saying we're not going to still learn lessons along the way that we got to adjust, but I think we got a good plan.
You got a great plan.
Did I understand earlier that we're seeking immediate approval to start training?
Yeah, condition. Yeah. Practice actually don't start for basketball until December 7th. But
But as
we'll,
far as like weight,
yes. Bring kids in so we can do some weightlifting and running. Try to get back in some type of shape or condition.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the Franklin High School plan for return to athletics as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have bunches of seconds. Any discussion? Moving by ward, all those in favor signify by saying aye, and of course nays and abstentions have the same opportunity.
Ward 1, Bob Holt, aye.
Tony Smith, Ward 3, aye.
Marshall Williams, Ward 4, aye.
Andrea Shelton, Ward 5, aye.
Jeremy McCreary, Ward 6, aye.
Carrie Johnson, at large, aye.
And Amy Phillips, Ward 2, aye. That motion carries. Start conditioning.
Great plan, gentlemen. Thank you all. Please feel free and join your families. Right now, we're going to go to our community events, just so the board will be aware. As you all know, on the 28th, we had Trunk or Treat. And we also had the contest, which was kind of spooky for some of them. Wow. Winners were announced on Wednesday, November 4th. You have SP Morton, JP King, FHS, and the staff. We had over 40 participants that sent their photos in, so that was quite exciting. And before that, on the 28th, we had the Trunk or Treat, the drive-by Trunk or Treat at SP Morton, and I actually videotaped the school roundabout, and then I went all the way down to South Street where the cars were lined all the way up.
Oh, wow.
And it was absolutely amazing. We had nonstop going through the bus loop for Trunk or Treat for over an hour and 15 minutes. We serviced over 200 cars, and I know we made 300 bags, and we only had 30 left. So we were so excited about the community support that we received, and the teachers and the TAs and just all of the kids that came out to be a part of this event. So please, board members, if you have time, it's going to be in the board communication. You'll see the link to the Google Drive where you can see over 100 pictures of all of those faces that was just there. It was just absolutely amazing. Next, we have the drive-by. We're doing a lot of drive-bys because of COVID.
Good drive-bys.
The good drive-bys. So you have FCPS drive-through, Thanksgiving dinner baskets. You already know 2 years ago we started the tradition to sit and have a meal as a family with our entire community. Well, this year we will not be able to do that. However, we still will be having the spirit of Thanksgiving from our school system to the community in Franklin. So families must have a child enrolled in Franklin City Public Schools to participate. In order to receive a basket, families must register. So once you go to our website, www.fcpsba.org, you'll see a pop-up right there. You can't miss it. And it'll ask you to register for the Thanksgiving basket. And if you don't want to register, which is fine, you just click the X and you can move on. The first 150 families with FCPS students to register will receive a basket on November 1st. You will be contacted with a confirmation number that will allow you to pick up your basket if you are the first 150. And of course, we want to go above and beyond that, but right now we have budgeted for 150 families. We're close to 50 families already that have registered, and Ms. Moore, correct me if I'm not mistaken, I think we just kicked it off yesterday. We just released the link yesterday. Mm-hmm. Right, just released the link yesterday, so we're excited about that. Do you have the flyer there? And there you have it. So please encourage families to come and participate in that event. Madam Chair, board members, I think she's trying to go to the flyer. She did such a good job with Miss Scott, with Cleo on this flyer. So this will go out to all of our community partners.
And she's been tweeting and posting, and it has been...
Yes, she's doing amazing. So at this time, that concludes the superintendent's report. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Sterling.
It's a little lengthy this evening, but
Absolutely.
Good news.
Last month, you had, this is going back a month, you had mentioned the student liaison for the month of September and October with your Stanley Lyons. And I just wanted to publicly, commend him for his 4.03 grade point average. I was reading further.
Well, thank you. Well, at the next board meeting, you'll get to meet the new liaison. So they're amazing kids. I'm done.
All right. Next up is business by school board members. Does anyone have anything to share?
Yes, I do. I attended the CTE meeting, and I was just blown away by the ideas that Dr. Carter has. And a lot of them are dealing with not only enhancing the CTE programs that we already have, like we brought in Mr. Cousins for the culinary arts, but also, you know, looking to regenerate the building and trades and to open it up to more things that will give our students an ability to go to work right away should they choose to do that instead of moving on to higher education. And I know for a long time there's always been this push that, you know, got to get high school, got to get a diploma, got to go to college, and then we leave out a lot of our students. But they were talking about things like criminal justice, which a lot of people will only think that that deals with police, but there's, you know, so many correctional facilities right in our backyard that our students can go to and have a leg up should they go through a program like that. They were looking at, you know, just throwing out ideas like maybe childcare, cosmetology, or things that won't just benefit our students, but will benefit our community and, you know, start really putting our people right back in our backyard, which is just a benefit for the whole city as well. So I'm really excited to see, you know, where we go with creating some of these programs and opening up more things for our students that aren't necessarily on a collegiate track, but are on, you know, a career technical track. So it was wonderful.
Anyone else? Carrie's a little bit passionate about CTE.
I am. I am.
Anyone else? Yes, we can do gifted. Dr. Shelton and I will tag team. We had a gifted advisory committee meeting last Wednesday. Last Wednesday was a very busy day. That was our first gifted advisory meeting of the year. We met the new gifted teacher. She was part of that and discussed her plan with servicing the students from elementary on up through high, among other things. We talked about the programs for our students matriculating into high school with Appomattox Regional Governor School and the Governor School for the Arts in Norfolk. Feels like I'm leaving something out.
The different ways that they have to communicate with their students.
Yes, they are. It's not. They are attempting Zoom interaction with the students. Of course, we know our high school students are a little bit busier than the middle and the elementary students. So for those, the gifted teacher is even taking to texting with those students, provided, of course, parental consent. So if you are a parent that has a student that is in the gifted program, your student is receiving emails from their teacher to set up those Zoom meetings. And if you're not hearing your student saying that they're having those meetings, reach out to the either the gifted coordinator or the gifted teacher, and they will make sure that they are contacting your students in the best way that they can. It was a really good meeting. I felt it was a really, really good meeting.
And it's important to the different ways that they have to communicate, since a lot of it's not face-to-face, so communication is even more vital, and to keep those channels open.
One thing that I was surprised to learn in that meeting, because when you look at how our grade levels are split up across the 3 schools, was that we have just as many gifted students at our high school level as we do in the other 2 schools combined. Which kind of surprised me, but I know that we're working on those numbers at identifying those students at the younger levels so that they can participate. And just because they're not in the gifted program does not mean that they're not high achieving students.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
I just want to dispel that myth that just because they're not in gifted doesn't mean that they're not gifted.
One of the things I do want to point out is you saw how beautiful that flyer was, which is absolutely gorgeous, wasn't it? But I don't know if you really took note as to all of the events that are going to be highlighted. That's under this board's approval. Every single program was implemented within the last 2 or 3 years. That's all you. So I want to throw that out there because I want you to really honestly, thank you. Can you make that bigger, Tammy? Because all of this is from this new board. But what I want to say is, look at all that's happening. Do you realistically think, and you're gonna have to talk about this for budget season, that we can only have one coordinator or one gifted teacher? It's expanded to the point where we may need another 2 actually gifted or advanced academic teachers, because it's exploding, because we have half of Franklin High School, literally 156 students out of like 290 or something that are taking either advanced academics plus a CTE plus moving towards their associate. That's a lot to manage.
And see, I'm looking at that list, the Pathways program at Virginia Tech, which last year was the first year we had students participate in
all
that.
you
That's not
guys.
even listed up there, and that program isn't just a summer camp. That's a year-long continuing program all through every year that they're in high school if they get into that program. So there are things that have to be done with that all throughout the year. So you've got to have someone to help
You too.
guide that child through that. And we had, how many did we have attend that last year?
Yeah, 44.
That's right. That's right.
And,
I knew it was a
year.
number.
And then you have that huge mentorship at the high school where she contacts them. And the middle school is going to need that kind of support. So just putting, a little bug in your ear early that we really may need to start having this conversation about how to support these programs effectively.
I agree, and I wanted to echo what you said earlier about it. It's been a long time since, even when I went through Franklin High School a long time ago.
Yeah, it was just a few years ago.
Almost 30 years ago. Yeah. Anyway, it's even been since then where there's been anything like this. And I think that when people hear the term exceptional education, they're thinking about one end of the spectrum, and they often forget about the other end of the spectrum. And it's feedback that I've heard over years, like, well, but what about my kid? Not for me, not for my kids, but for kids who are, at this end. So to see the pendulum swing back this way and, include everybody where no child is left behind. This has been a big population of our students, I think, that have not gotten everything that they needed. So I think having more devoted personnel to them, they would get what they need.
And the last thing I want to say is we are formulating a CTE specialist just for, this is Dr. Carter, all of those programs, to have someone just dedicated to pushing those trades and making certain that those students as well get that certification before they leave, and not just taking it because it's a high school checkoff, but really meaningful work and internships and apprenticeships.
My son, when he went through high school, and this is his second year out, he went through the culinary arts program through Franklin, and not with the desire to be a chef or anything like that, but the certification that he got there put him in jobs like in the summers and during breaks, and even still now he's a catering assistant at his college. It's put him ahead of the game because he had that. And I don't think a lot of people realize that even in the interim, if that's not what they're going for in their long-term goals, short-term, it's going to help them.
You're right.
Dr. Sarah, question. Thinking about the trade stuff like that versus an academic track. In my life, it kind of like this. But
actually a requirement.
Yeah, the economics and personal finance, which is a requirement, I didn't really know what was in it, but my son's taking it this semester, and I've been home when he's been in that class, and I hear things being thrown out there about interest rates and about you need a 401k, and this is why you need to do this, and this is when you need to start, and you don't need to start when you're this age, you need to start when you're this age, and if you put a little bit away now, and I'm going, wow. Nobody ever told me that,
Yeah.
So
My daughter actually took it a few years back, and she even had to by hand do a tax return. She learned how to do that in her personal finance class. So I mean, it's quite encompassing. They talked about loans and how loans work, and interest, and simple interest versus compounded interest, and education, and how student loans play into that, and it's quite encompassing.
I mean, to me, those are just life skills that take. If you know those, you're able to utilize all the other things you learn, and then don't become a distraction.
Yeah, if we can teach them how to load a dishwasher and do laundry, that would be great.
Well, actually, that was kind of my follow-up question. I know this sounds silly, but I've known adults in the 30s who didn't even know how to use a drill or skill, or just maintain their home. And I'm like, those are just basic things, but I took them for granted because I grew up with a father and doing all that, and I learned them. But I don't know. That was kind of my question is, like, even some of those things, 'cause I know we had home ec classes and stuff, I had to take, but I cook anyway. But I don't know, or shop, but I didn't know if all those basic life skills are available to all the students, whether they go to study HVAC or not, do they know how to change the air filter,
That's true.
For their air conditioning?
Great conversation.
Okay.
All right. Moving on in business by the school board. Not only were Dr. Shelton and I very busy last Wednesday, but Mr. Holt and I were very busy last Wednesday as well. The VSBA regional meeting was last week. Did you want to speak on that, Mr. Holt?
Not really.
Fine, I'll do it then.
It's good for us to get together and talk about things, but I don't really recall any earth-shattering thing that came out of it.
No, it really, there's no election of our regional chair or vice chair this year, because that's a 2-year cycle. They were both put in last year. We went over some of the legislative updates. Probably the biggest thing to come out of that was the annual Spring Networking Forum, which is usually held in March at one of the local schools. Will be virtual this year. They did go ahead and announce that will be on March the 29th. More information to come out on that, and they are looking to stick with the same platform that they have in the past, and have the local elected officials, so state senators and delegates, participating in that as like a panel discussion. So they're looking for some ideas on conversations and topics for that. That was probably the biggest part of that whole meeting. And then, as though Mr. Holt and I weren't having enough fun, we went from that to the finance and operations meeting. Anything on that, Mr. Holt?
Jeff Ryder just continues to blow me out every day. I mean, he is such a good finance guy. I mean, he knows so much stuff, and the bus pay that he talked about tonight, he's worked hours on that, and he's going to get it worked out. I'm very pleased with our finance and our personnel and our maintenance, and consider the age of the schools we have and the condition they're in, it's just phenomenal. And we're going to replace a lot of old fixtures and things, so that's really a good thing.
Yeah, that was a really good meeting, and I definitely am right there with you. We've got some phenomenal people in place in finance and personnel. Looking at how they are both handling those areas, it's really a lot more comprehensive than I've seen in the past, which is very reassuring. I think that's all. I think that's might actually be it. I feel like it's more, but it's been long. Sure.
I have worked out the plan for who does what, and I finished it today, but not early enough to get it typed up. So I will do that tomorrow and get it to our board clerk on Monday, and then we'll take a look at it. It's not going to be overwhelming for anybody, so I don't think it'll take too long. But I was thinking when the people were presenting tonight, everybody that presented tonight except for Travis is new. They've all been here within the last 3 years, and they're so professional, and they're so confident, and their standards are so high. It just, for me, who's been around here a long time, it's just overwhelming to see that kind of commitment and professionalism. And they all love working together, I think.
Me too.
So, thank you for all of that.
I love Franklin. And I'm glad you said that. I appreciate it. I'm not going to belabor, but many of them travel over 50 miles to get here, and they're here every day, giving 110% every day.
It used to be if you were a board member and you walked through the central office, it was like, get away. We don't want you in here, or you're not supposed to talk to anybody on the board. If I ever catch you talking to a board member, I mean, it was seriously that way,
Oh, wow.
but it's definitely not that way now. People are nice to me when I walk in. They smile.
Even from behind a mask.
They don't ask you to leave.
At least not in your shot, right?
We wouldn't do that.
That's all I have.
All right. Anyone else have anything for the board?
I just had a question about take your legislator to school.
Yes, this month is Take Your Legislator to School Month. Of course, COVID presents some challenges because we can, our buildings, we really have limited access to the buildings, and we can bring them in the buildings, but there's no students for them to see.
Why can't they sit in on a class?
And that's a great question. And Dr. Sterling, I actually did say something to her about, offering up, especially to our local governing body, seeing about getting them to sit in on a class, or maybe bringing one at a time, because of course I'm sure they're not all going to jump up and want to do it all at once. Bringing them in and letting them see exactly what the teachers are doing in the classroom, because most of our teachers, we do have some that are teaching from home. We have some that are actually in the building teaching. And, being in the parental role, I get to, listen in, and sometimes I go poke my nose in and see what's going on in class so that I'm not in the screen, but I'm out where I can see. And it is really interesting to watch these teachers teach virtually, and look at how they're flipping between this and that, and, interacting with the students and keeping them engaged. So, is that something we can look at somehow finding a way for our local
Yes.
governing
Yes,
officials?
absolutely. It's an excellent idea.
And even though right now is Take Your Legislator to School Day, one of the things that I thought as a board member, and of course that's for us to decide as a board, governance goes on beyond the local level all throughout the year. It's not just now. Of course, January is a big push when it comes to legislation regarding school divisions. And one of the things that goes along with the annual convention is VSBA's position, lobbying position on certain items, which I sent the delegate assembly handbook out a couple weeks ago for us to look at as far as legislative positions. But that's a great time as well to look at right as we're moving into that General Assembly session at really having a push with the legislators, because what they put into law then will impact the budget as it comes out. So that would, and of course, hopefully by then we're closer to coming out of COVID and can have more interaction as well. So that was a thought that I had. Does anyone have any other suggestions as far as take your legislator to school month or any interaction?
I mean, them sending it on a class is an excellent idea, because then they have a hands-on view of what's actually going on, and it's not just aloof, but it's interactive.
And another thing, of course, every year in the past, locally, we've had an Eggs and Issues breakfast, pre-legislative session and post-legislative session. Of course, I'm not so sure that it will be a pre-legislative Eggs and Issues this year, but possibly a post-event. If we can, I feel like if we can start having an idea of exactly when they're going to be hosting that locally, because that's done through the chamber, then we can work, if we can do it far enough in ahead, to get on those that will be attending schedule, so that they can come straight from that and have a tour of the school, and we can have those interactions with them. That might give us the opportunity to bend an ear, because of course our local representatives sit on the education committee, which is very beneficial to us if we can have that opportunity to have those discussions.
Not a problem. It's a great idea. Okay, it's 9 o'clock then.
All right, moving along then.
I'm part of the governance team.
Not yet, we got dates. Of course, next Tuesday kicks off the superintendent's webinar series with charting a clear pathway for improvement, the budget process. It's about a 30-minute webinar that Mr. Ryder roped me into doing with him. But it's very basic on budgeting and the school board budget process. Next Wednesday, our kids and our staff are getting a break from school. I know they're so excited about that. Next Thursday actually is supposed to be our regular school board meeting. Dr. Sterling, I do not anticipate you will be there because you will be on vacation. You will be on vacation.
I will be on vacation.
So,
So we have this back to back?
yes.
Oh, that's right, this is November.
Yep, this is November. We will miss you, but again, I will say we expect you to be on vacation.
As much as I can.
I'm gonna try to call you in if you answer.
Absolutely.
No, if you answer, I'm gonna fuss at you.
Exactly.
You will sit me right here on this ledge and I'll be fine with that phone.
Yep. And then, of course, the 18th through the 20th is the VSBA annual convention. Of course, that's virtual. And then we've got a couple of other things. Of course, FCPS will be closed, just going ahead because I want to plug that so that parents are fully aware for Thanksgiving from November 23rd to the 27th. And then actually the December the 3rd date, Dr. Sterling, is supposed to be our joint session with City Council. Have we reached out to them to confirm or see if they are open and willing for that date?
I'm not certain because I left that up to Mr. Ryder, so let
Okay.
me check. And
All right.
thank you for that. We can always move that around.
Yes, because I know on the calendar, we do not have that scheduled as a work session. That was a blank date pending
If they
the joint
can do it.
session.
Okay.
Mhm. So if you could follow up on that and check on that. And that is all the events that we have. So that moves us to item number 10.
I move to adjourn.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Anybody want to stay?
No.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Bob.